This is how fish swim, but do all fish swim this way? Well, to start, let's discuss what a fish is. To be classified as a fish, you must meet three conditions. All fish have a spine and skull, are not tetrapods, and have gills. This means that a shark is a fish, along with a seahorse and a stingray, while jellyfish and squids are not fish. So we know what fish are, but how do they swim? To find out, I asked Nanuet students.
And how do fish swim?
They use their tails.
Their fins and tails.
They use their tails.
They use their fins and tails.
Can you think of any other way a fish would swim?
I don't know. Let the water take them wherever it wants to.
No.
While some fish swim with their tails or with their bodies, it's not unanimous for all fish. In fact, there are many different kinds of locomotion. Most people only know about fish who use mostly their tail or their bodies because these are the most common and fastest forms of locomotion. Most fish that we commonly see live near the surface of the water, so they have a ton of predators they must escape from. This requirement leads to a development of a tail and strong tail muscles in the majority of fish. But other forms do exist in fish where speed is not a required trait, and in these fish, many different kinds of locomotion present themselves. One very strange method of locomotion used by few fish is a method known as amiform. A fish using the amiform movement will have an elongated dorsal fin running almost the entire length of its body. This dorsal fin will undulate in a sine wave-like pattern to propel itself forward or backward. The oarfish, which happened to be the subject of this documentary, used the previously mentioned amiform movement. The oarfish also have several other quirks that make it a giant mystery in the world of marine biology. First, oarfish have been known to beach themselves right before a natural disaster occurs. Second, the oarfish have a very rare and hard to reach habitat. Third, the oarfish's extremely strange biology. Fourth, the oarfish's odd diet. The oarfish's tendency to beach themselves immediately before a natural disaster occurs has shrouded them in folklore and given them the nickname doomsday fish. This legend of the doomsday fish began in 17th century Japan. In Japanese folklore, the oarfish is known as Ryuchi no Sukai, meaning the messenger of the sea god. The oarfish earned this name after locals would find dead oarfish washed up, and then soon after, an earthquake would occur. For example, in 2011, around 20 oarfish were on the shores of Japan, and just a couple weeks later, an incredibly devastating earthquake shook Japan, reaching up to a magnitude of 9.1. Again, in California, oarfish were found just 2 days before a 4.4 magnitude earthquake shook the region. Is this just a coincidence? Well, I got a real-life marine biologist, Angela Perusa, to answer some questions.
I think that because oarfish are so large and they have the lateral line that runs down the side of their body, they are sensitive to vibrations, and the fact that they could signal that there was going to be an earthquake or something terrible was imminent, um, it's probably likely that they would be affected by that long before we would know. So, whether it's a change in the thermal vents because of an earthquake that caused them to come up and actually die. Um, I don't know if that's exactly the reason, but I do think it has some validity to it.
Thank you, Ms. Perusa. As she said, the oarfish may be specially perceptive to vibrations, and these vibrations could potentially cause the oarfish to end up washed ashore. But because these fish live so far down and are so solitary, they are extremely hard to study alive. So unfortunately, there is no answer to if the oarfish are really doomsday fish. For all we know, it could just be a coincidence. An oarfish's natural habitat is temperate and tropical oceans at a depth of around 3,000 feet. This depth means a couple of things. First is the crushing pressures of about 148 psi, or 10 times the amount of pressure you're feeling right now. Second is the lack of strong current, which is significant because it leads to organisms down there not requiring strong muscles in order to fight to stay in place. Third is the lack of light, that being almost complete darkness. Lastly is the lack of stuff. There's practically nothing down there, and it's theorized that most oarfish never even see another one of their kind after birth. The oarfish has some of the strangest anatomy of all fish, and that's saying something considering what else lives at those depths. Firstly, despite their incredibly long body, all their organs are packed right next to their head, leaving the rest of their body pure flesh and skin. Wait, skin? Yes, the oarfish has no scales. Instead, it is covered in a crystalline compound that produces a pearlescent effect. This pearlescent effect is thought to be used to mirror the bioluminescence of krill. Krill will stay at a medium depth during the day to avoid fish on the surface, but at night, fish hide from other predators. This leaves the krill with a perfect opportunity to feed on the plankton at the surface. While feeding, krill will glow a bright orange for communication purposes. The the oarfish will take advantage of this feeding time of the krill and swim up there to meet them. The oarfish, already used to not using its eyes, has no problem detecting the krill with scent alone. However, the krill would immediately spot the giant black void coming for them if the oarfish didn't have reflective skin. Secondly, unlike most fish, the oarfish has no swim bladder. A swim bladder will take in and release air to fluctuate the buoyancy of the fish. This lets the fish stay at the depth it wants. To compensate for this, the oarfish must constantly undulate its dorsal fin to fight the weak but present current. Thirdly, because the currents are so faint at such a depth, the oarfish doesn't need much in the muscle department. This load on the muscles can be further lightened by growing more bone on its spine. The extra bone gives muscles something to push off of, aka greater mechanical advantage. This bone growth is known as hyperostosis. Seems great, right? But the problem is, only some of the oarfish studied have hyperostosis. As previously mentioned, the oarfish's organs are all packed near its head, just like an earthworm. This means that at any time the oarfish can drop its tail, something known as self-automation. The oarfish is the only fish that performs self-automation. Well, what else do oarfish eat? For a fish that large, you gotta eat more than just a couple krill at night. Well, the answer is dead and dying plankton, congealed together with waste, mucus, and jellyfish tentacles. Sounds delicious, right? As previously mentioned, the oarfish does feed on krill at night, but during the day, the oarfish will float there with its mouth open, waiting for food to fall in. This mixture of a bunch of tiny organisms balled together is called marine snow. It starts on the upper ocean, and when these plankton die or get super weak, they start to fall, collecting more and more stuff on them as they snowball towards the bottom of the ocean. This process could take weeks. To the oarfish, this is the essence of their survival. What an oarfish will do is maneuver its huge body to be vertical in the water column, facing the surface, and wait for the marine snow to fall down as they filter it into their mouths. There is no evidence the oarfish ever reaches a maximum length. However, how much they grow is completely dependent on their environment and life situation. A healthy oarfish without struggle could grow incredibly long. However, every oarfish we've studied has had struggle. This struggle could be due to multiple things. One such thing may be the fact that it's pretty hard for the oarfish to find food. Its eyes are rendered useless in the depth of its habitat, so if they cannot see, how can they locate their food? Well, it's through scent. The oarfish will open its mouth, take in water, filter out any food that fell in, and before the water leaves its mouth, it passes by the oarfish's nostrils. Nostrils that can only be activated when the mouth is open and filtering water. So what the oarfish will do is levitate at its depth and open its mouth, thereby passing water over its nostrils and detecting the amount of food in the water column. If there is enough food scent detected by the oarfish, it will sit right there. But if not, the oarfish will blindly move around until it detects adequate food scent. It's a game of blindfolded needle in a haystack. But the hardship of finding food isn't the only struggle the oarfish go through. While it is well known that the oarfish have gelatinous flesh, a horrible taste by the account of one guy who decided to taste it, that doesn't deter all predators from hunting the oarfish. The number one predator of the oarfish is the sperm whale, which is wildly successful when attacking the oarfish given the fact that the oarfish has no defense or escape mechanisms. The oarfish is an incredibly solitary creature, but expert Tyson Roberts believes that the nostrils of the fish may also be used to detect a specific pheromone given off by oarfish in heat. This pheromone allows opposite gendered oarfish to find their way to each other. And when these oarfish do find each other, they do something unbelievable. This Mike Menser impersonation has only been documented once, when two oarfish came in contact with one another. The reason for this bizarre reference could be a multitude of things. If it's some sort of territorial stance, it could result in a truly pitiful battle. However, if it is some sort of mating ritual, shortly afterwards the female oarfish will drop its eggs and the male oarfish drop its semen, letting the two mix in the ocean as the eggs fall. This is the beautiful way little baby oarfish are made, carelessly thrown into the great depths of the ocean.